Well, I'm super excited today. We have some other members of the Partners for Ethical Care team here. We're joined by Alex and Bryn, Lynn and Maria, and today we want to talk about Ellen Page and what is happening.
Well, for anybody who doesn't know, maybe we should recap real quick. Ellen Page is an actress. I believe she's 33. She's been in numerous movies. She was the lead actress in the movie Juno. She most recently in the Umbrella Academy. She came out as a lesbian 8 years ago. I don't know, something like that. A while ago. She's married to a woman. But this past week, she announced that she is actually a trans man. So she's now claiming to be a man. She's also non-binary. I believe I heard both of those. She's trans and non-binary, which I'm not sure how that works. And she uses the pronouns he and they. So I'm not exactly sure how that works. But yeah, she's insisting, and Hollywood's complying, that they go back, remove all of her credits that were under the name Ellen, and change it to Elliot. And you're right, that's just rewriting history. It's erasing a person. She's trying to erase herself. And that's really sad. That's really heartbreaking. Why would someone who has this really great career, she's done some amazing work, she's really a role model for a lot of young women. And this is heartbreaking and troubling. And we've even talked to, I know some of us have talked to some young women this week who are really troubled and disappointed by what's happening.
Well, and one of the things that I read, it was an interview with Ellen's wife. And this woman was talking about now her husband. So they had been in a lesbian relationship, and now Ellen's wife is talking as if she has a husband and how proud she is of her husband. And this is just confounding.
Yeah, I also think that we should perhaps talk about the statement which she made, because I feel that the statement itself was full of all different types of clues about what this is really about. So, you know, one would imagine, or one would kind of, I mean, it's an irregular thing to do, to come and declare yourself the opposite sex. However, it is a personal thing to do. And in her kind of manifesto, she's talking about being scared and happy, and but then going on to murder statistics about, you know, Black males and you know, Latino trans women. And it kind of makes a direct, I think, threat to J.K. Rowling, saying that, you know, to all those with a massive platform who continue to spew hostility, you have blood on your hands. You unleashed a fury of vile and demeaning rage that lands on the shoulders of the trans community. I mean, it's all very culty, and the cult is the right word I would use.
Well, people are being blamed for actually killing others by not accepting somebody else's reality or claim to reality.
I think exactly is that when someone midlife decides that they've always been someone else, in effect, you are murdering. Ellen has murdered herself, really. She's killed Ellen, and she's decided that she's always been Elliot. And when I'm listening to Alex talk about the hate that's spewed, all of this angst that she's spewed, like J.K. Rowling. Imagine if that was your child and your child felt that way about you. And that is what parents are with when their teenagers suddenly decide that they have always been the opposite sex. And you know, parents are being told they can't hang up their Christmas stockings and Christmas ornaments because they have memories of when the child had a different name, and that's not allowed to be spoken anymore.
And so what Ellen is doing is really modeling a behavior that is very dangerous. It's a behavior that suggests that if people don't accept what they say as fact, and if they don't do what they're supposed to do according to this narrative, that they're hateful and that they're responsible for the death of other people. That's incredibly concerning.
I agree completely, and I'd even take it a step further. And I'm concerned on a personal level, knowing so many women that, as I do, who are kind of living on the edge, who have recently desisted, who have recently kind of quote unquote come back to reality a little bit. I'm very concerned that this is going to either inspire more girls to go down this dangerous route, or to potentially kind of confuse the ones that, you know, have already decided that, you know, they want to embrace their bodies. And it also, of course, does make me very concerned for young lesbians, because I actually think that now it just appears that that is a kind of a stop on the station to trans. It sort of seems like it's just a place that you stand off, and then you get on the next stop is trans man, which I think is very dangerous because it's medicalization. If Ellen Page was just cross-dressing and was just taking on a man's name, there's no problem with that. But it's the medical intervention and the revisionist history and all the rest of it that we know is so harmful.
And we've stopped as a society, we have stopped celebrating our lesbian sisters. We're taking away the platform from them, and young girls don't have those role models. And the few that they do have, Ellen being one of them, I especially know that there are a lot of young girls who may be experiencing a gender identity crisis who watch the Umbrella Academy. And so she is a strong visual for them. And now she's, like you said, she's gotten on that next train, and she's taken away the power that she had for these girls to have a role model, and has shifted what that role model is. Now, this is a personal decision for her, and I understand we can't expect every public figure to do what we want them to do to be a good example for our children. But at the same time, the fact that this is the popular, accepted, celebrated narrative is a little bit heartbreaking, only because the narrative that we need for some of these young ladies are strong female role models that get to have a platform in a space, that are in lesbian relationships, that don't expect their lesbian wives to call them their husband.
And as Alex mentioned, and you know, sort of the erasure of lesbians is horrifying. But the fact that this announcement was made the same week that the Tavistock ruling in England came out, where the High Court acknowledged that these interventions were experimental and harmful and did not alleviate gender identity issues, is really concerning, because it kind of overshadowed that. And we have young lesbian girls and other girls with gender identity issues who are going to be wanting to follow Ellen as a role model, even though they're going on a path that's going to be detrimental to their health and their mental well-being.
Yeah, and if we sorry Maria, if we compare the two statements that came out, if we compare Ellen's statement, which to be honest was just nonsense, and if we compare Kira's statement, which was, I am a strong woman, I call for an end to this, I call for an end to homophobia, and then you have Ellen's statement on the other hand, which was kind of like, I'm a fragile person and TERFs are killing trans women. It was just, you couldn't compare.
Yeah, and I was just gonna highlight that now coming out as trans is sort of the it thing to do. You know, I've talked to young women in school, in middle school and high schools, who've said, you know, I didn't have a friend group, but once I joined the GSA club, then I had this huge friend group. And when I said I thought I was homosexual, well, then I was, you know, even more popular. But when I came out as trans, that's when that was where I really was edgy and cool. And the thing too is, once you make that announcement of a trans identity, you're untouchable, because the bullying that is coming from that side, and anybody who has questioned, who has had any concerns about the gender industry, has felt the bullying. You're immediately called hateful, transphobic, bigoted, you're killing people, you're actually killing people just by asking this question. And so it is the ultimate gang to join that group, at least in schools. But I would say anywhere in society, once you have made that announcement, nobody can touch you. Nobody can criticize you. Nobody can question you. The only thing anyone can do is tell you how brave and stunning and amazing you are. Why wouldn't people do that? It gets you instant street cred that nobody can take away from you.
And imagining our children, young, vulnerable girls who might have eating disorders, might be autistic, might be lesbian, might have anxiety issues, just might not be fitting in. What a welcoming committee for them, that if they claim to be transgender, all of a sudden they don't get bullied anymore. They're celebrated, they're affirmed. And not only that, but they get all this attention as they seek these medical interventions. As you know, each step of the way, people are celebrating them instead of helping them work through these issues and become a healthier person. And I think if Ellen's announcement was simply, you know, I'm a butch lesbian, you know, I'm going to cut my hair and dress like, you know, dress in traditional male clothes, I think that would definitely not be harmful. That would be a woman who is saying, I'm not going to adhere to regressive stereotypes. But instead, she's denying her very essence of being a woman and a lesbian and turning her back on other women and saying, now I'm a man. And the fact that anybody can even do that is astonishing to me. If she had come out and said, I'm actually an African American, she would not be celebrated like this.
Well, she wouldn't have been celebrated if she'd come out and said, hey, I'm going to fully embrace my nonconformity. Because the only people that are celebrating the nonconformity are people like us, people who are critical of these harmful gender stereotypes. We're not promoting that people have to fit in a certain box, a certain way in order to be themselves. And even though it's one of the most radical schools of thought that exists right now, it's not popular. People don't want to be a part of that. There is no celebration. We're just helping people break out of these boxes and out of these stereotypes. And I don't understand why that isn't celebrated, but here we are on the side of unpopularity, and there wouldn't have been a big manifesto that she could have put out about cutting her hair and wearing a flannel.
Nobody would have cared about that. I think that the revision of history and personal history is truly you know, for everyone is going back, scrubbing everything off the internet, all her awards. Wikipedia immediately said that her name had always been Elliot. She had always been Elliot. All references to Ellen Page are gone from the internet, gone from history, like she never existed. And not only that, but the rest of us have been told in no certain terms that we had better get on board and agree with her. If we don't, we're going to get canceled. We will get threatened, and then we'll get blamed for somehow killing people. So that's crazy. That's just crazy.
Well, and it is crazy. Yeah, go ahead, Maria.
I was just going to say, I'll mention too, before we even started talking today, the 5 of us had a conversation. Are we allowed to use Ellen Page's name? Can we call her a she? If we do, is YouTube going to take us down? Are we going to get this video canceled? And we decided as a group, we're going to speak the truth, you know, and risk getting canceled, because truth is important.
But now there are people who consider truth hate speech. And to me, that's probably the most concerning thing of all of this. I mean, it's horrible that children are going to get dangerous medical interventions that are going to affect them for life. It's horrible that women aren't feeling safe in bathrooms. It's horrible that girls no longer have women-only sports, and that our safe spaces are no longer protected from males. Those are all kind of horrible things. But to me, the very foundation of society is threatened when we are supposed to lie, when we have to lie, when we are told if we don't lie, we are hateful, we are bigots, and we are responsible for people's deaths. That's the kind of thing that happens in fascist governments, and it's really scary. It's not a step further to people being taken to the wall and killed.
I experienced a little bit of that recently. I made a post, a very innocuous post, inside of inside of an event that I'm holding, which is just about, you know, rapid onset gender dysphoria. And I'd invited Bryn to come, and I'd written a speaker profile on her, which was just describing her family situation. I did not say, I mean, it was so, it was, frankly, it was a little boring, but I simply said that, you know, that Bryn had a daughter, and that was facing these issues, and that that Bryn was an advocate for whole, healthy bodies, not hormones. And Facebook struck me and banned me for 30 days and made me take, and they removed the post, and it was just so telling, as to how much they want to silence these things and silence these issues over the smallest things. So if anything, it needs to spur us on to keep talking, to keep saying the truth, because they're just going to have to cancel all of us. And that, you know, and that's fine. 49% of the planet, you're just, you know, that's it, cancel us all. Because I'm not going to capitulate to these fascist tactics, as you're saying, Erin.
And we need to be role models for our children, because there have actually been cases in schools where school children have been accused of bullying and faced actual disciplinary practices for not lying about somebody's sex. And so I feel like more than ever, it's important for those of us who are willing to stand up and speak the truth to do so, even though we might face some repercussions.
Well, Erin, I just received yesterday a policy from a school district. A teacher leaked it. It was supposed to stay in-house and not be shared outside, but it's the new standard policy for transgender students. And there's a clause in there that indicates that teachers or students who will not comply with the forced pronouns, the new name, the hiding things from parents, anyone who doesn't comply can be disciplined. So you can no longer, in the United States, in that school district and many others, exercise your First Amendment rights to freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, and freedom of conviction. Because if you do, you will be disciplined in the public school system.
Not to mention speaking truth. I mean, to me, the fact that schools are now, that schools, that social media, that all these platforms that have gone back and changed history to based on Ellen making this announcement, they're all like forcing us to lie, basically. They're saying that if you don't lie, you will face consequences.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, Erin, you might want to link the blurb that Alex made, my introduction, just so people can see how perfectly reasonable it was.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect reason. It was, I wouldn't say it was boring necessarily. It wasn't exciting, but it was perfect.
It wasn't
inciting. There was no incitement there.
Yeah, that's, I mean, for me, I write so much stuff which is spicy and is meant to get people riled up, and you know, which is deliberately offensive, and I do that a lot. But when I wrote about Bryn, it was so ridiculous, because it was just a story about what's happening in her house and to her family, and it was like the censorship of that felt to me damn personal. You know, I felt personal.
Yeah, and then I do want to speak to
there's
the
something
in the public education system. Technically, students are not protected under the First Amendment right when they are at school. So there isn't anything that we can do as far as the freedom of speech goes when it comes to this language to begin with. So there is no protection for our students there that want to talk about reality, and there hasn't been.
But there should be for teachers, and there should be for faculty, and there isn't.
Right.
Yeah. Well, also parents are also being compelled to lie about their own children. And there are parents who have lost custody of their children for refusing to lie about their own children.
In Scotland this week as well, I don't know if you guys managed to see this, thank God I don't live there anymore, but one of the ministers wants to make misgendering a hate crime, even if you do it in your own house. Think about that. Yeah, so obviously he's gonna fail with, like, you know, incredibly, but you know, fascist, you know, it's hate crime, it's hate speech in your own house. I mean, we really need to get a control about what is hate speech, because hate speech can be anything from me saying the most vile racist stuff to, let's say, you know, me having an insensitive Halloween costume or whatever, and then, you know, me calling a man a woman or calling a woman a man either, right? So it's like we've got no concept of what hate speech is anymore, and that means that we actually can't tackle real instances of hate and real instances where people have been told terrible racist things, because everything is now just hate speech. It just makes no sense.
Well,
I
and
think
the
it
other
goes
thing that I
back.
think is really scary is that I've been told, you know, I've been threatened, I've had death threats against me and rape threats against me, and I've been told I deserve it because I'm a hater. And to me, that's, I mean, all of these things are incredibly concerning. So as we finish up here, I'm wondering if we can talk about what can people do who are watching this, who are, you know, maybe as concerned and scared as we are. What kind of hope can we offer? And, you know, we can't let Ellen sort of dominate this and let this be, you know, just another instance where we are silenced and where our history is erased and where lesbians are erased. So what recommendations do we have?
I think just continuing to speak the truth and to have the courage to speak the truth. And I think one thing that's really powerful, and anybody can do this anywhere, anytime, is when you see someone being silenced and you know it's wrong, or you see someone being threatened, being, you know, called names, whatever, support them, come alongside them and say, hey, I agree with you on this. I agree that you have the right to say that. That kind of linking arms with each other is very powerful, and it's very easy. You don't need to write an op-ed for the local paper, although that's great too. But even just those very simple things of holding to the facts, speaking the facts, and supporting people who are being silenced.
Yeah, I think that anybody who feels safe enough to have a voice, we should come together and we should use it. And we know plenty of people who don't have that. They're not in a situation where they can, but we can know their stories and we can be a voice for those who aren't in a space that they're safe enough to use theirs. And I think that the more we come together, the more that we talk about this, the bigger we become, the braver other people will be able to be. The more we insulate one another, the more we'll be able to have a platform.
Right. And I think what we're kind of trying to highlight here today too is how important language is. And you hear, a lot of times you hear people say, it's just a pronoun. How hard is it to just be considerate of others and use the pronouns they ask you to use? But the fact is that language is important. And when you say things, you're agreeing with those things. So if someone told me that I have to call Bryn he, and I'm being compelled to call Bryn he, and I just go along with it, I'm agreeing that Bryn is indeed male.
You are complicit.
I'm saying that. And so it is, I think, a real act of strength to say, no, as a matter of fact, when I talk about Ellen Page, I'm going to say she, and I'm not going to say he and they. Ellen can say that is what she would like, all she wants to. But my words are my words. And I don't have to say.
I'd also go a step further as well with that, Lynn, because, you know, okay, that's fine, because that not calling her by her whatever pronouns, okay, that's really not going to affect us in a big way. But let's say we were to go along with pronouns of somebody who was like a male to female person, and they were in our bathroom and we said, I want her out. It doesn't make any sense, okay? Because we're not conveying the words that we need to say. We're not conveying, obviously we don't want her out of the bathroom. We want him out of the bathroom. That's why we're asking. So this is why that, you know, pronouns, they might just seem like words you slip in here and there. They're incredibly important and we mustn't give them up.
Right. There was a rape victim who was compelled in court to refer to the rapist as a woman, as in, she raped me with her penis. And she was censored and punished for refusing to call her rapist a woman.
You know, the irony of all this is that, you know, this all sounds so surreal. And what I'm hearing over and over again is that we are women who are standing up for girls and children and women and truth and safety. And for doing this, we are being called haters and TERFs and even Nazis, and being threatened with rape and death, and being told that we deserve it. And I can't think of anything more misogynistic than what is happening now, that we have lesbians who are feeling empowered by declaring themselves male, because that's what's happening, and for women to be afraid to speak the truth because of the consequences. So I thank you all for the work you're doing. I encourage people to come to our Partners for Ethical Care website to get more information. And I hope this is a call to action. You know, it's fine to sit and watch videos and to, you know, join us with like, yeah, this is bad, but you need to do something. So I encourage people watching this to stand up and say something.
I think it's really important that our children know that they weren't born in wrong bodies.
Yeah.
Everybody is entitled to have a personality, and you don't have to fit these rigid stereotypes in order to be your best self. Your best self is you. That is who your best self is, and you shouldn't have to change a thing about your outside appearance in order to be your best self.